You are listening to Girls, Ghosts, Ghouls, a podcast where three women discuss horror movies from the silent era through the 1970s. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Spotify, and Anchor. Timely, topical, terrifying. Well, welcome back. It's been a bit, and we'll probably be slow to get this out because I'm slow. But we are continuing on with our Poetravaganza, and we are now on episode 6, I believe it is, of Follow the House of Usher, which is Goldbug. So Goldbug does not have a movie equivalent. They never made a movie version of Goldbug. It's a short story of Poe's. It's more of a mystery than a horror. And I tried to listen to it, but it's got a lot of racist language in it, given the time it was written, and that's not really a good excuse. And so I couldn't listen to it for very long. Um, the story itself has nothing to do with racism. It's just it's written racistly, let's put it that way. But the story itself is basically the summary I read. There's a guy who lost his family. They were plantation owners. Obviously, there's where part of the racism comes in. And they lost their fortune. And so the guy moves to an island in the Carolinas with his loyal servant. And you can go from there to figure that part out. And there's an unnamed narrator that comes over and they're talking. And this guy who's, trying to restore his fortune and move to the Carolina Islands discovers a beetle. Not really has not been classified before, new beetle that is gold. So it's basically a gold bug. There you go. And well, he wanted to present it to his friend. He had loaned it to somebody else, so he drew a picture of it. And when the guy was holding the picture up to the fire to look at it, he noticed it looked like a skull. And like the guy that drew the picture got a little upset because he thought he was a better artist than that. It really wasn't looking like a skull and all this thing. And so then he picks it, he's about to crumble it up and throw it on the fire, and he looks at it and he stops, and then the guy just like gets moody and weird and stuff like that. So the narrator's like, well, I'm out because this is some weird shit going on. Clearly, I just hit this guy's mood and he's in a mood now, gonna go away. So a month later, Jupiter, who is the servant, comes over and is like, hey, and just tells a story, like a long drawn out version of the fact that um his guy is acting ill. And this part I like. He was gonna beat his guy with a stick to try to get him out of a mood. So that little switch on how things go was like pretty cool. I'm like, yes, go beat the white dude with the stick. That's awesome. Um, but and that like he's in this mood and he thinks that the gold bug actually bit the guy, and that's why he's having these weird fever dreams of gold and won't really, when he does sleep, it isn't quite sleeping. And and finally the narrator's like, okay, I mean, that's awful, but like, what do you want from me?
And
So finally, guy's like, "Oh, well, this note," and the note was basically the the crazy guy going, "Hey, I need to talk to you. Come see me, please. I know I was a little weird, but I really want to chat with you. There's this discovery I made. Come on over." So he goes back and visits his friend. His friend's like still kind of frantic and weird, and basically says, "We're gonna go on this excursion." And the three of them and a dog go, and they find this big tulip tree, and he has his Jupiter climb the tree and like look for this like the seventh branch up with the little gold bug on a string. This is the important part. And he's supposed to go drop it through the eye of a skull that is at the end of it. And he does, but he drops it through the wrong eye. But they discover this only after they've dug a really large hole and found nothing. So so then you're like, Jupiter, are you sure you dropped it through the left eye of the skull? Jupiter's like, it might have been the right eye. Oh. So then they calculate and they dig and they find Captain Kidd's treasure. And the whole thing was that when they held the paper that he did the drawing of the gold bug on the fire, he noticed that when he held it to the fire, words appeared, and he just spent time decoding it and figuring out where Captain Kidd buried his treasure. And he was really excited because he knew the gold bug was going to take him to the restoration of his family's fortune. And that is basically the two relevant points of the story that come into the gold bug episode.
yeah,
One, it involves a gold bug, and two, he wanted to restore his family's fortunes.
and the moodiness and messing with perception.
That was because he was fevered and kind of weird and all, but it's again, I read a summary and wouldn't listen to the story, so I don't know how much his moodiness and weirdness came into play, but I assume it was enough that in the Netflix episode of The Fall of the House Usher that they had her hallucinating and were definitely playing up on the lack of sleep. But I just thought I'd bring that up so we knew exactly what Goldbug was supposed to be when we thought about this episode. Since what we paired it with was Tales of Terror, which is a trilogy of Poe stories starring Vincent Price, Peter Lorre, and Basil Rathbone. So, which has nothing to do with Goldbug, but
No, no,
this does have to do with the overall series. So,
that's gonna have to be as close an association as you can get with this one, really.
yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, at least as I say, the casting for it was lovely.
Oh,
Mm,
absolutely.
Yeah, and as I was watching this, I'm like, I had to look it up. Like, were Peter Lorre and Vincent Price friends? Apparently, the answer is yes.
yeah.
And I think that definitely played into fact in the second vignette of the three.
So, bonus again, great cast. I love seeing these guys. They just do Roger Corman's visions so well. And Roger Corman, who, again, our director here, we're always going to be a fan of him and he's sorely missed. Not that he didn't have a long run, but it's still sad that he's gone now. But yeah,
Richard Matheson also was involved. He was the screenwriter for it.
hmm that's true. Um, but so it was three stories. It was Morella, the Black Cat, and the Strange Tale of Mr. Valdemar.
Strange Case of M. Valdemar, something like
There
that.
we go. And
Yeah.
Valdemar. Thank you. I always get it wrong. My brain is just opposed to that
The
title for that.
Strange Case of Voldemort.
I almost say Valdemar, and I'm like, that's no name. I don't know.
Uh,
But yeah. Um, which so you got Morella, much like in the Fall of the House of Usher, poor Morella, who's currently bedridden and being tortured by her husband in the series, right? Um, but in this tale, the first tale from Tales of Terror, she is a dead woman who died after a party. So, and
she
Vincent Price, her loving husband, unburied her and stuck her on her bed to rot.
and the
And she has
wife,
a daughter, Lenore.
yeah, well, and the dead wife blames Lenore for her death.
Mhm.
It's your fault.
Which is a departure from our series because Morella and Lenore adored each other. There was no weird mother-daughter oddness there. But yeah,
Yeah.
in this story, yeah, Morella blamed her daughter for her death. And Lenore comes back after having been sent away from the house by her father, who apparently was very mean to her after her mother died, because he also blamed her for her mother's death. And apparently is dying herself. I'm assuming of like consumption or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. Probably, I mean, it is the classic
You
Victorian
assume by the
wasting
cough.
away
Cack,
disease. Yeah.
cack. Yeah.
But,
And at
yeah.
first, Vincent Price is not happy to see her. And the house is a wreck. There's no servants. As I said, Morella's rotting corpse is laying on a bed. But then he finds out his daughter Lenore is dying, and suddenly he's my poor daughter. I love you. Let's spend some happy time
He's
together before you
repentant
go.
all of a sudden.
I
Hmm
gotta say, though, crazed, half drunk Vincent Price is hotter than he should be. I turned around and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, damn. Okay, wait.
Oh.
Oh, no. And then I was like, Daddy, what is happening? Oh,
I'm glad you said it, Betsy, because I had been thinking it myself. I was like,
my
oh, yeah,
dear
it's nice in
God.
this one, all crazy.
How truly. I was
Not
kind of.
not like Dragonwick, beautiful,
No.
No,
insane,
no.
but
But oddly
Dragonwick was
appealing.
crazy. But yes, oddly appealing. And he
yeah.
kept. Yeah, I'm like, okay. It's
Maybe it
fine.
was the very cool smoking jacket.
It could have been
Yes.
that.
Yeah, well, it was between the jacket and his hair was a little wild in this one instead of being like in the later ones he's a little coiffed and like gentlemanly, but in this one he's obviously like gone a little crazed. So his hair's a little wilder and he's a little scruffier and apparently it did it because I was like, all right.
Yeah.
So eventually, Morella, her spirit comes back, inhabits her daughter's body, and sends her daughter's spirit to her dead body. And it's the part that confused me. And then, like, went and strangled her husband because she was apparently pissed at him about something.
Well,
And then they
she
died of
Because,
fire.
the spirit killed. Yeah, the spirit killed Lenore.
Right, I
Um,
got that part, but I don't understand why she was pissed at her husband.
because he embraced
because
Lenore there at the end and she still blamed her for her death.
Okay, thank you for clearing. I couldn't figure it out myself. I was like, why is she? almost.
And, how dare you enjoy life after I'm gone? Or how dare you be living after I'm gone? Who knows?
Fair, I guess,
Or also a little bit of you were the one who got me pregnant.
It's me. That makes perfect sense.
I would think.
That scans. Yeah.
But I love how they all just died in the fire. I mean, like that, you really don't see that happen too often.
Yeah, they had reused some of the exterior shots from Corman's Fall of the House of Usher for that. So if some of it looks familiar, that's why.
Mhm.
Same
That
setting one.
that does
So,
make a bit of sense.
yeah, because each of these beignets, they sure didn't spend a lot of time because the whole filming, I think, took 3 weeks. So if you figure 3 stories, a week a story, you
Yeah.
gotta hurry up and use what you got. Because prop department is gonna be like, no, we don't have time for this.
It's kind of what you have to love about Roger Corman. Like a lot of his stuff was super low budget and they had to be
Oh
very
yeah.
innovative and very quick and very good at what they did. I would say what they weren't really great at in this one was makeup for the most part. It was not very good.
No.
But you really don't care that much.
No,
No, no.
no.
It's kind of ridiculous, so you just kind of overlook that part.
Yeah. So then we move on to the Black Cat, which in this version is sort of a mix of the Cask of
Cask of
Amontillado and
Amontillado.
the Black
Yeah.
Cat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was my favorite of the 3.
Mine too. And this is at least partially because I love Peter Lorre. I love him. I can't help it. I know he's creepy. I love him. Every time he shows up on screen, I get weirdly excited. Like I'm like, it's bad, but I do. I love him. So
You should
every minute on screen,
watch the German expressionist film M.
M is
It's done.
so
Yeah, it's
good.
done in German language for anybody who's not familiar with it. I think. I think it was done in German because I think I remember subtitles.
It is. Yeah, it's
Um,
German. Yeah.
okay, all right.
Because it is
Peter
dark.
Lorre does do a really good job of playing these drunken sod characters. 'Cause
Yeah,
this is
it
the
almost, yeah, I would say that that's basically almost all you really see him play, you know? Like it's always something that's a little, if it's not always drunk, then it's a little mad.
Oh
And
yeah.
I expect the typecasting a lot of had to do with his looks, because, let's be honest, Peter Lorre is a rather comical looking man.
He's a
yes.
strange looking dude. He's strange looking. He's short, very short. Um, but such a good actor that
Oh,
it's
God, so good. Yeah, like he's somebody I'd want to chill and have a drink with, because I bet you in reality he's not that crazy drunk. He's probably more that fun, kind of lighthearted, you know.
I was I was super sad to realize that he died pretty young. Like he was in his
Mhm.
60s when he died. I was very sad to learn that. In fact, he died not like a year or two after um this film. So
Wow.
yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was doing far too much of a deep dive on Peter Lorre.
That's funny because I did that for Basil Rathbone.
I would do that too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think my favorite scene with Peter Lorre and Price in this one is the scene where, because you'll go through this, the gist of it is Peter Lorre is the abusive husband who has the wife who has the black cat, and oh, but Montresor, you haven't worked for 17 years. There is no money. And so he's a deadbeat. He was mean to his wife, pushes her around and what have you. So he manages to get some money out of her that she has hidden away because he just starts wrecking the house. And she's like, better give him something to shut him up. Gives him a little money, sends him on his way. And he wanders into this wine merchant convention thing, kind of.
Yeah, already drunk because he drank at the bar first, and then
Oh, yeah, you're right. And it becomes a competition between the wine expert, wonderfully paid by Vincent Price, and Montresor is like, oh, that's nothing. I'm better than you at this. And they have their little duel between the two of identifying wines, which this is my second favorite scene with Price because of the silliness of the expressions on his face as he's tasting the wine.
tasting.
I mean, he's just dialing it up there. Yeah, I know. I can't even do it. I can't even do it.
Like, Vincent Price had far too much fun doing it, and at some point the rest of the cast started cracking up with it
Oh
too.
God, yeah. I'm like, how many takes did this take? Because no, it's one of those classic Price overacting things. Oh, where he's it's
He
like,
does so well. Like, his overacting is so well done that it's not overacting anymore. It's
yeah,
just
I
it's like,
I
how is
mean,
that possible? But it does.
yeah, it is, and and eventually they wander back home to Montresor's house, and he meets the wife, and he meets the cat, and he's entranced by both, and the long and the short of it is they get involved in an affair, and the Montresor finds out, and
Wait, but my favorite part about it is how he finds out. It's
oh
so
yeah,
funny
go into
because
that, go
he's
into
just
that.
like happily drinking at the bar, and he's like, "Yeah, my wife she suddenly just hands me money anytime I ask for it now." And the barkeep's like, "Yeah, so like when did that start?" And he's like, "Oh, oh." And he
Oh
realizes that the wife started handing over the money after she met Vincent
yeah,
Price character Fortunato, and Montessori's not stupid. He puts it together at that point. He was a little oblivious prior to because he was just happy to have that money to drink. And then he was like,
yeah,
yeah. And then, yes, goes and doesn't really catch them in the act, but he catches Fortunato leaving and, calling his wife by endearing terms. And it's quite clear what happened.
yeah. And, and she's like, "I'm leaving you for him,"
Yeah.
and I guess that's when his character gets the idea that, well, I'll just kill them both. So,
Yeah. Which is
and
when we
that's
start pulling in the little cask of Amontillado thing into it
yeah.
because he invites Fortunato to dinner, offers him a couple glasses of the Amontillado, and drugs him, and then
And that's what I like, because the whole time when you have Price's character going on, oh, about this wine, you have Montresor making these little side remarks like, oh yeah, you're gonna die soon, and and Price's
and not
character's like,
drinking
what?
the wine.
Yeah. He's like, what? Oh no, nothing, nothing. Enjoy your wine. And that goes through the whole scene, and the writing was lovely on that part. And I do have to wonder um, if any of that was ad-libbed. Yeah.
Very, very possibly.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
also wonder if some of that was used in the poison in the wine scene for the Princess Bride. Because there's a very similar, like, now you drink from your glass and I from mine kind of feel to it, where he's like,
Mhm.
yeah,
Aren't the two glasses different as well? I think in this one, I think they look different.
I
might have
don't
been.
know because it
I
might have
don't
looked
know.
a little different because he never really filled his own glass.
Yeah,
So I
maybe I
couldn't
just
really
wasn't.
tell if they really were different or if it just appeared different because they didn't have the full amount of liquid in it. I don't know. But
Just in the way that Laura's character might have wanted to make sure, okay, I get this color glass, he gets the other one.
I did notice that when he first poured them, he had his own glass put on the other side so that it was out of
Yes.
reach, so it was
Yeah.
clearly separated.
Mhm.
And also like one little fun fact of trivia you can find is that this story was recycled from Comedy of Terrors, which is from 1963. So I think it was 63. And it came out before Tales of Terror, and it was very similar in vein, I believe. So if you want to, you can actually do a pairing of these two movies and enjoy the two trilogies. But yeah. And then we do eventually get to the Black Cat part where, it slash basketball's a lot of part where we have Vincent Price's character come to and realize he's slowly being walled up and the begging and the pleading and realizing that, there's the woman that he's been having the affair with dead next to him. And then the black cat makes its appearance a few times. And then eventually Montessor, Peter Lorre's character, goes to the bar and is buying everybody drinks. Like I guess I might have blinked and missed this because I only watched this once this one time. But I think he found his wife's money stash, did he not?
Yes.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, he broke up basically the whole house, and then at one point he smashes a vase and it was down in the vase. So he
Yeah.
found the rest of the
All
money.
and he goes to the bar and is extravagantly paying for everybody's rounds and mentioning how it's like thanks to his wife and mumbles who won't need it anymore. And the same
Yeah,
perceptive bartender who was like, and when did your wife start giving you money? Was like,
yeah,
and
the
calls the
bartender's
coppers
like,
on
wait
him.
a minute.
And the cops show up, much like in the other Black Cat versions of the movie. No, not in the series, because the series the cops don't show up because the guy kills himself and not involving anybody. But
Yeah,
and
and Telltale Heart when the cops come looking for the other guy that's beneath the floorboards and
mhm,
oh, similar.
Pretty common theme in Poe.
It does seem to be.
yeah, and find the bodies. Which brings us to the last of our tales of terror, the strange case of M. Mark. Um,
This was my least favorite of the three. I didn't
It
like this
was
one as much.
it was strange. I didn't dislike it because Basil Rathbone
Yeah,
does too good of a job as the
exactly.
the
um
skis.
yeah, as a skis. Like a total and utter like at one point I'm like, does he really think that he's doing something or is he really just doing this to get the wife? Because that was entirely possible that that was what he was doing.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was a hard tell, but though I think the reason why it's not an enjoyable film is all the threat in it. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of
yeah,
Poe stuff has threats like the abusive to women and stuff, but there's usually, this one was like so many levels of creep. Because one, you got the guy dying and he's like, "Oh, I want you to be happy, marry this guy." And I guess that's sweet, but it's also a little creepy. And then,
yeah,
you know, and
That
then you
one I
have
kind
the
of liked,
hypnotist. Yeah.
weirdly, because it looked like they were a marriage of like arrangement, him and his
Yeah.
wife, because he was
oh,
so much older than her.
yeah.
Like,
Well,
It's
yeah,
so
but that's
creepy.
also not uncommon though.
Yeah,
right. But then I appreciate that he's like, you guys obviously have a thing. Like, it's very obvious that you and the doctor are kind of into each other, so you should marry the doctor. Like, he's a good guy. He likes you. Marry him.
Yeah.
And I was
I
like,
mean, there was
that's kind
affection,
of sweet in
between
a
them.
weird way.
But it's also a little like creepy because you think about like, oh, so you're gonna be dead, but you're giving me permission. But I think it was more meant to be like, I'm giving you my blessing, not permission, but it came off a little
yeah.
weird.
Permissiony.
Well,
Yeah,
I
he's
mean,
a little too old.
because we're viewing it into from our modern perspective, and from their perspective, most likely it would be oh, I'm making sure you're taken care of when I'm gone because God forbid, women can't exist on their own, blah blah blah.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's
And then you
100%
watch
accurate.
the terrible threat that Carmichael is, because here it's even creepier. It's almost like he wants a situation where he can rape the wife in front of the dead guy, and but the dead guy still be conscious of it. So it's kind of like you have Vincent Price's character just stuck in paralysis, having to watch this
Yes.
go on,
Yeah.
and it just gives you a huge feeling of ick.
Yeah, yeah. But Rathbone was so good at
Oh
playing
yeah,
villain. It's
Such a good
wonderful.
bad guy.
Mm. Well, and Sherlock Holmes because he did like what 14
Oh, yeah.
films.
yeah, he was excellent as a Sherlock Holmes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so I guess we're skipping ahead. So basically, Vincent Price's character is on, painfully dying slowly, probably something like cancer, if you think about it. And Rathbone's character Carmichael basically was a hypnotist that was hypnotizing away the pain and not charging them anything. And in recompense, he was asking that at the moment of Vincent Price's character's death, he wanted to hypnotize him to hold him in stasis at that period of death. And Vincent Price's character was like, sure, I mean, whatever, you can't hold me that long, I'm gonna die, it's fine. So he wasn't really thinking about the consequences of it. Whereas his physician and his wife are like, this is a bad plan, don't do this.
Yeah.
Of course, he doesn't listen to either of them and is successfully hypnotized at death and basically has a soul trapped in the body. And the wife and the doctor are planning on, doing their life together, which is also a weird thing. Like, how do you get a death certificate when he's not quite dead yet? But the legal complications of this struck me. I mean, he's dead,
Well,
but not dead. It's a little weird.
I mean, the doctor's the one that writes the death certificate, so
True. So he could have done it anytime,
I
really.
was gonna say he could have done it anytime. He could just be like,
yeah.
"Nope, he's dead."
Oh yeah, he's dead. We
But
just
basically, he drags out for days holding Vincent Price's corpse and spirit together for a long time, where it's obviously, and Vincent Price's spirit is calling out, "Please let me go, please let me go." So the doctor and the widow show up, and like the doctor's like, "I'm going to make Carmichael release your husband's soul," and of course his plan is to try to shoot him, and like the widow's like, "No, no, no, don't do it." She's like, I'll just go, I'll fix it. Meanwhile, Carmichael is also saying, I'm never gonna let this guy go, and this woman's gonna, and has Baltimore say that he actually doesn't want her to marry the doctor. He wants his wife to marry Carmichael now, and they know it's bullshit. They're like, you forced
Yeah.
him to say it. We know this. But the wife goes like, she sends the doctor away, and she goes, look, I will marry you. You release him first. And of course, Carmichael's like, oh, you don't give me ultimatums. You are going to marry me, and then maybe I'll release him.
Yeah.
Like, you have no say. Which is also, I think, why we all found this movie very much like,
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
And of
Yeah,
course,
because that
basically tries to start raping her and is screaming, and she's screaming, and it's funny to me that nobody can hear her scream. But
Because you would think there would be servants in the
well,
house.
beyond that, because here's where it gets tricksy. So, at this point, the dead husband is able to break free from the hypnotism, and his
Yeah.
quickly rotting corpse goes after the hypnotist. And as he's going after the hypnotist, the Carmichael screams. And then the doctor and the servant could hear Carmichael scream, but they couldn't hear the wife scream, interestingly enough. But they come running up the stairs to try to break down the door. Well, meanwhile, Baltimore's putrefying corpse falls on Carmichael, and basically he's free, and Carmichael, I guess, drowns on the putrescence. I'm not really sure. He dies, so it's okay.
Yeah.
I
That's,
kind of
that's
thought
the
he
important
died of
part.
like fright.
It's fine.
It's
Either
kind
one
of how
works
I
for me. He's
interpreted.
dead. That's all that matters, really.
I was going to say, all that matters is that he's dead. There's putrescence. Quote by Poe. Film is over.
Yeah.
The
I
worst
enjoyed it.
makeup, though, on Vincent Price.
What's
Bad makeup. The worst makeup on Vincent Price.
that? Yeah. Apparently they used like a little mud pack to simulate the
Well, even before that, the
desiccation.
white powder makeup they had on him, it was not
Yeah,
very
that was
well done.
bad. Yeah.
But a completely enjoyable movie, though.
I was going to say, but in spite of all of its flaws, it's super fun to watch, honestly.
Yeah. 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 The
Fun times.
yeah, like I said,
Highly
the first
recommend it.
first two are great. Third one can give you some oogies, so if you're sensitive to some themes, you might just skip that one. Oh.
It's also coming off the second one. It's hard to because you're already watching a movie of abuse followed by another story.
Yeah.
So it's not a pleasant
I
pairing, but
mean,
it's
let's
fun.
be perfectly honest. None of these stories is particularly happy for women.
No.
Well, I mean, the first one,
I mean, yeah, she gets to live forever and murders people, but she had to die to get there.
and she had to kill
So,
her own daughter, so it's a
Yeah.
little
right.
sad.
It's a little
Well, I
sad.
mean, it's Poe. His stuff is not happy at all anyway.
I was going to say, you don't expect it to be happy, but
No,
also
no.
women don't deal well in these usually. So,
Everybody's going to be miserable, and that's the way it is. So.
So, all right, though. Moving on to our Fall of the House of Usher Goldbug. Man, okay. So, as you remember, Tammy was the legitimate daughter
Yeah.
of Roderick Usher and Annabelle Lee. And she has built a sort of fitness empire with her husband, Bill, and it's built. And
Uh,
they have a rather fascinating relationship where she apparently physical intimacy is not her thing. So they hire prostitutes, and she basically directs the scene and watches her husband interact with the prostitute in the manner that she has dictated and then pleasures herself. Go girl.
whatever
I,
floats your boat.
yeah, I mean,
A little odd, but hey,
it works for her.
there's a lot crazier stuff out there.
Yeah,
no harm, no foul. Everybody's getting
Yeah,
theirs,
exactly.
right?
That's almost vanilla in the realm of kink.
true. Very true.
Yeah.
But it turns out that the husband actually does not enjoy this. He does not enjoy having to have sex with somebody else. He wants to be with her. And as it goes through, their marriage breaks up because she keeps seeing Berna slash the Raven slash Candy the prostitute appearing everywhere. In the built exercise scenes and she sees her everywhere. And even to the point you can tell that it's kind of a mental deterioration though, because when she's like accusing her husband of this stuff, he's like, you were with me. What do you mean?
Yeah, I saw you walking in the park with her, and he's like, "No, that was you and I."
Which,
So
I mean,
that
gaslighting aside, this character is clearly not a gaslighter.
Right.
no, no,
Yeah,
Like,
Bill is
I mean,
not.
he may be a
There
little
are
two
abusive relationships
dimensional.
where somebody will fuck with your head like that, but it's clear
Yeah.
from the storyline that this is not who this character is. So,
No, no.
If there's
Bill,
abuse in this relationship, it's her to him, honestly. Like
yeah.
she is mean to him sometimes.
Yes.
I
Oh, yeah.
absolutely agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just so it's the day of her, well, the night before her big launch of her big plan to save her family's fortune through her Goldbug program.
So she's setting up for the launch, and
Right.
she's sitting and talking with Madeline a bit, and she's having a little bit of nerves. And they're going through the pre-motions. Her assistant is like, "Okay, I'm going to start this, and we'll get you in 5." And one thing that you'll notice is Tamerlane is starting to miss time. Because previously in this, she was like, you would see her sit down with some tea to edit a document, and she would just sit down and kind of blink, go for a second, and then come back, and it's the document is all marked up, the tea is gone, she doesn't remember shit. And you're thinking, maybe this is related to the insomnia, because you see her trying to go to bed one night, and my God, it was like a whole pharmacopoeia by her side.
Yeah, well, and to a point too. So, like when you brought up the document where she had finished editing, if you watch real quick, she first you see clear editing marks, and all of a sudden it's like crazed writing across the page where she's like,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it says like fucking whatever. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's very obvious in the early part of this episode that she is really losing it because she cannot sleep.
Yeah,
Like,
she's disintegrating before our eyes.
yeah, it is bad. Like she'll doze off doing things. She's losing time, like long periods of it. The that scene when she has the edits and she has the glass of tea or the cup of tea and it's full and then she blinks and it's empty and all the edits are done. And it's like, oh, she is severely losing time. Like this
Yeah.
is and
Well,
but it's obvious that while she doesn't know what happened, she was doing things during that time slip.
yeah.
So because she had edited the whole document, she drank the whole glass of tea.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot going on with her. She is not well. Like,
Oh, and as I was looking at all the drugs she's taken, I think I saw one of the. I think they had one that was supposed to be Ambien, and I'm like, oh yeah, that'll fuck you up because it's a hypnotic, and even if she wasn't already disintegrating from lack of sleep, the drug
that'll do
kicks
it.
you over into that a little bit because I've taken it, and I
Well, the
had had.
Ambien was the one where people would wake up from sleepwalking and be having sex with homeless people. I mean, it was
Yes,
yeah, it was
yes,
bad.
yeah.
It was bad. Um,
Thankfully, my
it
hallucinations were very, very minor on it, enough to be me like, I don't think I want to take this.
yeah, it's bad. It's
But when
very, very bad.
but when you're so desperate for sleep, because I had been having insomnia for like 6 to 8 weeks at that point in time, and you'll do just about anything, and Tamerlane was trying just about anything,
oh,
which
that
makes it
scene where
worse.
she's in bed. It was so real. Where she's like, just go
You're
to
going to
sleep.
sleep. Ah,
Yeah,
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 big time.
that's insomnia for real. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but my saddest favorite scene from that whole, uh, look at that was the so at one point her husband comes in and he's trying to offer her condolences
Yes.
because Victorine had just died in the episode before. And, she starts out at him and she's just like, whatever, and, telling him to go fuck himself, basically, and saying that she picked him. She basically tells him at this point that he was just part of the brand and she chose him. It was him and one other guy, and he was the one that
Right.
she chose,
Yeah.
and that was the whole marriage. But then she starts having this conversation where she's like, no, I'm sorry. I really has been hard. I'm really trying to save my family and all this stuff. And she has this really deep open conversation
Yeah.
with her husband only to find that he'd already left the house because of what she had actually said for that, and that the whole thing where she thought she was still talking to him when she was actually saying stuff that might have saved her marriage, he
Yeah.
had been long gone.
Yeah. Because when you tell somebody, look, just you leave with the clothes on your back,
If
and
that.
you were just you were. I mean, she essentially just calls him a placeholder.
Hmm.
You know,
That anybody could have been him.
and that's harsh, you know,
Hmm.
especially when he, despite everything, does seem to care for her.
Yeah, it's the hardest thing to watch because we all know how hard it is to find somebody that actually cares for you.
Yeah.
And, you know,
And it's very sad that in her world there was no possibility to her that he would ever do that. Like in her world, it's all transactional. It's all
Yeah.
transactional.
Mhm.
which was the curse of Roderick, right? Because that's how he
Hmm.
did it, right?
Yep.
Because
But
his love was always transactional. Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah.
So we skip ahead, and well, we have a little bit going on between Madeline and Roderick, right? So
Yes.
this is the scene where, he comes back, he's still in a blood-covered shirt from having left Victorine's house, pulled the heart mesh off the fiance himself, basically. Clearly having hallucinations where well, not clearly, he is having hallucinations where he's talking to his dead children. There's a whole scene with the sapphires and all that craziness, where he basically says that it's not that it's priceless. You have to just have time and patience and figure out who it is you have to pay and what you have to pay them to get what you want. And then, we have Madeline telling him, you need to get your shit together. And whether or not you believe that somebody is attacking us, you need to understand that Victorine was on the board. So your family firewall, you're down
Yep.
one, and that
Yep.
makes us vulnerable. And this he's happy about because he feels that this is where he can actually fix something because he's, the man and he can strong arm people to vote his way and put whoever he wants to replace the board or whatever. So there's that. And also we have a little bit a vignette where, we have Morella and Frederick and uh Lenore. I wanted to say Lorena suddenly. I don't know what's wrong, dyslexia. But and there was this really touching, heartwarming scene between Lenore and Morella. So they're watching, ironically, The Pit and the Pendulum, which will come into play next episode. And,
I saw
and
that too. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
nice touch there. And Morella's conscious, and Lenore is like, "Do you want to watch a movie or a series next?" And Lenore is able to talk, and she interacts with her daughter a little bit. Or I'm sorry, Morella is able to talk, and she interacts with Lenore a little bit. And Lenore is just a gorgeous little actress that plays her. By the way,
Oh
I
yeah.
think she does a great job. And she runs downstairs. She's excited to talk to her dad. She's still trying to figure out, well, when these doctors are supposed to come, and her dad's kind of like,
Yeah. And
you know,
then you're like, oh shit, I see where this is going.
just to say, Henry Thomas totally acted 100% well what a guy looks like when he's on cocaine. Um, because that whole bowling sequence, his
Yeah.
his facial features, like everything that he's doing, him talking to his daughter, I'm like, oh, that is a man who is definitely on cocaine
The,
still.
the
All right.
constant sniffing as well. Yeah.
Yeah, the sniffing, the facial, the like over
manic.
exaggerated excitement and stuff. I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah, that is good for you, Henry Thomas. You're doing a great job. I'm proud of you.
Yep.
That is a
Yeah.
good act.
Yeah, actually, I have to give on so many levels that actor does a great job. The
Hmm.
desperation, the playing out the coke, the craziness, the evilness, the even the puttiness when his, as in putty, when his dad yelling at him, how he just kind of just turns into mush and doesn't really have a
Yeah,
backbone at that point. All of it, he does it really well.
yeah.
And
The
like you,
first
you totally
time
believe him.
when you see him, you're like, oh, so he does actually have some really awful potential in him.
Because you don't pick that up right away. I mean, you get a
No.
hint at it because when Perry comes to Marilla, she says, and you see his interaction with Perry, but you know how dudes are like that though. So you don't really quite get it then, like he just looks more like a kind of a shitty older brother versus younger brother thing. But then when Perry is talking to Marilla, Marilla's like, he's hard sometimes, even to those he loves. You get a little hint,
Hmm.
but man, it comes out quick after the whole.
Does it ever? Does it
Mm,
ever? Yeah, because what we're referring to is after Freddie sends Lenora off, what have you. Freddie goes up and he's talking to Morella, and it starts to you start to hear the edge and the implied nastiness, and then you see him mix up drugs to put in her IV line, and you're like, oh shit.
yeah. And here it's a proprietary experimental drug that he's putting in her IV line that was mentioned before in Victorine's experiments, where it basically is a paralytic.
Yep.
Um, so you're fully conscious, but you're paralyzed and nothing.
Fully conscious, fully aware.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Which kind of, takes you into the strange case of Richard and Valdemar.
Yeah,
So,
there you go. That's a reasonable
um,
tie-in.
so we have a tie in there. And yeah, just crazy shit. Meanwhile, Lenore goes to visit her grandpa and figures out that he's a little unhinged as well.
She's probably
Yeah.
the only sane one in the family, frankly.
Mhm. But she's trying to go to him because she's like, there's something wrong with Dad. He's not acting right. And of course, Roderick being Roderick anyway, he's like, oh, we're all a little off. It's fine. Meanwhile, he's asking her if she can see, like, the dead people. And so, Lenore's feeling really alone at that point.
Yeah.
Um, and then, you have poor Juno. I love
I
that character. She's
know.
the
Oh
most
yeah.
honest character, and I adore her. Like, she's just, she couldn't have been a gold digger character, but she's just not. Like, in a sense, if she was gold digging at all, she was digging for her family. She wasn't digging for money. She just wanted to be a part. And she even says that.
That moment with her and Tam in
Hmm.
this episode where they're having that, it's a heart to not heart, I'm gonna call it, because Juno is pouring her heart out. And I do appreciate that Tam,
Eases up a little.
I was gonna
She
say,
does.
she's friendlier than she could have been. Because she straight up is like, he's not good with anyone. It's not personal to you. Like, my
Yeah.
dad's a shitty person.
I kind of feel like a little bit of, and I'm trying to find the right words for this, but like a little bit of decent understanding came out of
Yeah.
Tamerlane at that point.
A little
Very little,
empathy,
mind you, but
tiny bit of
it's
empathy.
like what
Tiny
you
bit of it.
said, Betsy, that she was not mean like she could have been.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Normally she would have been snappier than she was, but it's
Yeah.
like she caught her at a weak moment because she's, dying because she hasn't had sleep in so long and whatever. But that moment, like, you feel for Juno because Juno is obviously breaking down. Like, this is more than what she thought she was getting into, obviously. Like, she has just married into this family, and now, like, four members have died in like 28 hours. Like, this is a problem. Like,
Hmm.
I can't even imagine. And then her husband is just gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I
And
think that's
plus,
later when,
Tammy the whole time has been so horrible to her, like calling her a junkie and all this. And there's even a scene before where Juno's like counting out her pills and she's not happy. Like it's not like
No.
she's like, oh, this is great. And the truth is, for the level, like her addiction is literally pain management. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
it's at no point when you're watching do you see her just doing it for a buzz. Like when
No.
she's on it, it's not like a heroin addict, even though that's technically what you would kind of be with that kind of because it was opioids that they were taking. But yeah, she's not happy about it, but it's literally something she just has her body keeps adapting to. So they keep upping her dosage to keep her at a level of being able to exist without pain. Um,
my liver cringed at that scene where she's taking all those pills.
which is twisted because it's like kind of what Roderick's interest in her was, because she's like the perfect
Yes.
poster child for his drug,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And he says it throughout the series. My wife is on it. Look at her. She's doing fine.
Yeah. She's a show.
But
Well, I
meanwhile,
mean, any wife of somebody that rich is a showpiece, no matter what.
true,
So,
sure.
She's just a different kind of showpiece. Normally it's
Showpiece.
because they're
yeah.
super good looking. It's because
Mhm.
she has a very high level of pain tolerance and can take his drug with minimal issue.
Addiction side effects.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, but meanwhile, Tammy's trying to find her dad for support. She can't find him. She's clearly freaking out. Madeline goes and finds Roderick, who's down in the basement of their company,
As he's
staring
sitting
at a wall,
staring at
toasting
a
it.
brick wall. Hmm.
Again.
And and, I find this interesting. Like, Madeline this whole time has not had children. And she doesn't seem super affectionate except for to Lenore, kind of like Roderick does, and to Tammy.
Mhm.
And she's
Mhm.
pissed at Roderick. She's like, your daughter's doing this. She's going to be saving the company. You need to get up there and support her. Get off your ass. And there's Roderick there with his
Yeah.
care less. You know what I mean? In his own mind, father of the year, clearly. And of course, he does not show up for Tammy. And you could tell in that talk that Madeline and Tam are having it hurt her that he wasn't
Mhm.
there.
Yeah.
I mean,
And, you know, this is,
I still think that part of her character, like in the background, is that she should have been the one taking over her father's legacy. And then when he didn't, she wanted to set out on her own to show him what she could do, which is
Mhm.
why she was doing this kind of on her own and has her hands in everything and like setting everything up because she wanted to show her father that she should have been the one that was chosen and not Frederick, because Frederick is not,
I think there's a
he doesn't have
discussion
the
about
ability
that at
anymore.
some point too, from
Yeah.
her.
Yeah,
So
it's just there. Well, and then it's kind of an interesting parallel because despite the fact that Madeline is clearly the competent one, clearly in charge, she is constantly just the woman behind the curtain. She's not the one, you know, and Roderick has the audacity to question her a lot. You know, clearly she's the smart one. Clearly she's the one with the plan. Clearly she's the one who got them there, right? It's
yeah,
really clear in the whole series. And then when they're up there with Pym talking about, you know, where Verna's been showing up, and she's insisting that this matters. This person is coming at us. I don't know how, I don't know why, or well, she kind of knows why, but this is what is happening. And then there's Roderick that's just, no, you're insane.
yeah.
No, 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 won't listen to her for any reason, you know, questioning her and everything. And it's just like,
You want to
yeah,
smack him. You want to
she
smack him
should
because it's
have.
like he's not. I mean, she is clearly a powerhouse, and he's just dismissing everything she says, which is a very stupid move. Oh,
Very
she knows
common
her
move
shit.
by men in power when they're talking to women.
Yes, yes, it is.
Um, but it's also the big reveal about Verna and her history because you know you
Hmm.
see these historic pictures of her with evil, you know, wealthy magnates throughout the centuries, right?
Yeah,
Including our horrible soon-to-be President Trump in there, which I thought that was an interesting statement.
yeah, yep. I
Um,
like that.
but yeah, so like you just see that she's a woman in these pictures behind all these terrible people that made it big and are obviously terrible people. Like,
Like
it's
Monsanto,
fun.
the founder of Monsanto. I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
oh yeah, evilness right
Yeah,
there.
what the people that he referred to as the toxic twins.
Yep.
Yes.
There's just a whole bunch of yeah. First,
First. Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
just a whole bunch of not so great people, and that it's been throughout the years, and like you know, and of course, you know, Roderick's like it's Photoshop. That's what it is, and like Pim's like, okay, but if it is somebody with a lot of money and power who was able to go in and do this cyber thing in an
Yes.
instant, that's terrifying of its own, even if
Yeah,
that's what it is,
yes.
Right.
you
If
know.
that is what it is, it's
That's
still
just as,
bad.
yeah, that's it's still borderline catastrophic because of what you're potentially facing. You know,
Hmm. Whereas Madeline's maybe it is exactly what it looks like, and that would make sense considering, you know.
yeah. I think if there's anybody whose observational powers we could trust, it would be her. her her evaluation of the situation.
Hmm.
You would think. And yet.
Yeah.
And yeah, and we also get more insight into Pym, right? So like, well, Augie and Roderick are talking in the house, you know, he gives a little background to who Pym is and what the level of fucking just badassery this character is. And he talks about he was on this trip around the world and that, you know, the guy was 25 when he did it. And, you know, like just, you know, of course, when we sent him after her, he found her. It just wasn't that day. And we also get like the level that Vern is fucky with them. Because, you know, they found their patient record that Victorine had of her, and that the address on it was the childhood home of Madeline and Roderick. So it all ties in there, and the just the little hints at like how crazy, badass Pym and terrifying he is, which also makes me question that little when Pym is in Victorine's house and he
Mhm.
talks to his assistant and what does he say? Something, I'm having Richard Park for dinner. Let him know I'll be late. It does give you a little Hannibal Lecter feel about having somebody for dinner.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like, that sounds kind of cannibalistic.
Sure does.
Okay, so it's not just me. Good.
No,
Oh
no,
no.
and I think that was intentional. Because you know, part of like Roderick's going on about it, he was like, you know, he stops right when he gets to the, I think he said the Arctic, um, And he's like, and he doesn't really tell any more than that, but we like to make up stories. Like we like to think he might have eaten a person. I think the funny part though is like when Roderick is saying all the things he'd like to think that Tim did, Roderick's
Mhm.
like, why would you want to think somebody did? Like his
Right? Like,
face is getting more like, okay.
do you want that to have happened? That's not good, sir.
That seems a little weird of you, sir, but okay, we're just doing that thing. But then we get to like again back to the conversation with Madeline and Tam, and you just first Tam actually admits that she missed her husband and she kind of wanted him to be there. Why she would expect he'd be there after what she said to them, I don't know. But you feel for her because she's like, I kind of wish he'd be there. And you gotta love Madeline because she's like, fuck them, you don't need them here. Which also makes you wonder why Madeline never stepped up to the forefront at this point. She just never took her place. I mean, maybe
That's
she never
fine.
wanted to, but she also, it's weird to me that she never did. But now
Maybe
Tam's
she
time
felt
in the
like,
spotlight comes on.
yeah, maybe she felt like being in the front line limited
I mean,
her
it makes you a
ability to do
target,
it. Yeah.
but so Tam goes on stage. Well, she actually storms on stage because she sees the host, the MC, for lack of a better term, looks like Candy slash Verna, dressed like her, and she freaks out and yells, "What the fuck are you doing?" as her entrance line, which I thought her recovery was pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. Congratulations to trying to pull it back. And she was getting to the point where she almost had them. And then she just
Yeah.
disintegrates further. Oh.
And
Because she keeps seeing Verna.
it's so hard to watch.
It is.
So hard to watch.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean,
'Cause-
you just see her self-destruct on stage. And I was kind of pissed. I'm like, why doesn't her fucking aunt step on the stage and just like put her arm around her, take over or something? Get her the fuck out there.
No.
But she doesn't. She just lets her further deteriorate where she finally tries to find Verna. But again, Juno though, right? So,
Mhm.
For
you know,
Juno.
I
she
know.
tries to help. It's so sweet.
Yeah.
At one point,
Yep.
when in the middle of Tam's speech, she gets distracted where she's saying, because no two people are alike. And she pauses because she sees Verna, to your point. And Juno's like, completely agree. Just trying to help fill in the space. And like from the
Yeah.
chair, she's trying to like,
Yeah. And wasn't there a two, like, where I thought in the, I can't remember the dialogue from Tamerlane, which preempted it, but I think at one point Juno just she says, I wanted to come to support you.
yeah. I think it was one of those times where she said, "Why the fuck are you
Why the
here?"
fuck are you here? Yeah.
Again, yeah, you're
So
right. And Juno says, "I just wanted to support you."
I feel kind of sorry for the wife because she's really caught up in a bunch of shit that she just has no idea of. No.
And she knows how much damage it did to the point when she pulls her box out, she's like, "Watch, mine's filled with feces."
Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And then she gets hit. Poor Juno. Yeah. So like pretty much Tam just devolves completely and like suddenly she's hallucinating that like on the video screen any photo of hers has been replaced by Candy slash Berna. And then next thing you know, she's hallucinating that there's a sex video of one of her sessions with Bill and the prostitute and herself directing it. And oh my God, that was so funny. Whole scene where she's like, we're talking about positive reinforcement here. I've had a hard day, a lot of stress. So, Bill, I want you to lick her armpits and then eat her out. Please,
Licking
will you
her
stop
armpit.
acting like I'm asking you to do the dishes?
The licking the armpits thing got me.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Uh,
Want to yuck someone's yum. I mean, if you like to lick armpits or you like to have your armpits licked, fine. But I'm like, wait,
that
what?
I reserve the right to think it's gross.
I hope she took a shower before this because if she has deodorant on, that's just nasty.
Ah. Ah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also feel like au naturel, it might be a little, if she doesn't shave.
That's why I'm saying it has to be
Anyway,
like right
it's a,
after a shower. Right after a
Yeah.
shower.
Yeah.
it's a whole thing. She picks on her husband for acting like he's got to do the dishes to do this. And her husband's just like, all right, dear.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Tam obviously has a complete breakdown and is like screaming to shut off the video and is beating the screens with her microphone stand before she throws it in the audience at the hallucinated Candy and instead hits Juno in the
Or Gina.
I know. I was like, oh no.
and that microphone stand looked like it weighed more than Juno. It was terrible.
They do have a pretty solid base on them, so they don't tip and
Yeah. It's not good. And it shouldn't be funny, but it is a little.
yeah.
Meanwhile, Madeline is like, I know that bitch is here, so she's trying to track down Verna, and she sees her,
And
and
she
she's
goes to
actually, I
grab
think at
her.
some point she yells, "I'm right here," implying that Verna should come after her and leave Tam alone. I think was maybe the implication there, but she knew what the deal was. So, she goes running after Verna. She goes to grab her. Verna turns into black smoke, and then you see like a inky kind of mess on Madeline's hands that she then has a Lady Macbeth moment. Out damn spot, out I say. Um, and then we finally have poor Tam back in her apartment all alone, seeing Candy just as her on the phone, talking to her husband about how she had a breakdown and really needs him, only, of course it's not real. And
Yeah.
she starts attacking images of herself with her mirrors
Mirrors, and the last
and
thing she does is throw whatever it is she's
think it's a
smashing things
fireplace
with.
poker
I think it is a
Okay.
poker.
Yeah.
up
She
at the mirror that's
hits.
over the bed, which is one of the reasons why you probably don't want that over your bed.
No,
I
and
mean, you do you. I'm just saying having glass above your bed is probably just never really the best plan.
yeah. Yeah. As soon as she started arching that poker up, I'm like, I know where this is going.
So she's sliced to little ribbons and pretty much decapitated, and that is the end of poor Tam.
I just read a fun fact on IMDb, so I thought I would share it.
Mhm.
Arthur Pym, we were talking about him saying that he was having Richard Parker for dinner. So, Poe wrote a story about a sailor named Richard Parker who was eaten by the fellow crew members on a ship after they're shipwrecked. And it was
Yes.
included in the narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym of Nantucket was the name of the story. So he was talking about eating him.
And that was based off of a true event that had happened in the South Seas in that region.
No,
Um,
it was
Caitlin
worse
Doyle.
than that.
Yeah, well, yeah, I said based off of. I didn't say it was a copy
No,
of.
it wasn't based off of it. He wrote it and it happened a year later. It was published
Oh.
before that actually happened.
Mhm.
It's a weird urban like legendy type thing. But yeah, the guy getting shipwrecked and then the eating of the person didn't actually happen until after the poem or the story was published. So it's a apocryphal tale that he wrote it about it, but it wasn't. It is
Got
a
it.
happenstance that it happened after or before this story or after this story was actually
Yeah, I'll have
published.
to
So
go
it's
back. Caitlin Dougherty does an episode about the real life incident.
yeah, I've listened to several podcasts about it.
Yeah.
Fun times. So yeah, I knew that had to be intentional. Yay.
Yay. Yes, it was.
Yeah. Like, I
So
don't think
sorry,
much
Richard
about
Parker,
this
you got
show is unintentional. I think everything is
think so too, but
designed.
that's a phrase that it could have been that you were supposed to wonder about, but I guess if you had good Poe knowledge, you didn't need to wonder about.
It's
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember because we've been talking about why Madeline never stepped into the public. And I'm trying to remember the exact conversation between them and Verna that New Year's in 1980, whatever it was, because I believe that the questions that she asks them are why they fill the roles that they have. Because I think she asks him what he would do for like power or for money or whatever. And then she asks, or to be immortal, I think is what she asks him. But then what she asks Madeline is something different. And I think it's the difference in what she asks them in that moment, but I can't remember the exact wording of what she asked them, of why he ends up being the one in the spotlight and she ends up being the one behind.
Well, I don't remember the exact wording either, but I also agree that it may not have actually been the questions, though. I think that all along she didn't want to be. Like
Yeah.
Madeline's goal was not to be, from what I remember she sent her saying, was not to be, and hers was more that nobody else could tell her what to do,
Yeah.
kind of thing is how it came out. But it still seems that that's not quite what happened. But it's also weird because Roderick has a great deal of respect for his sister. He refers to her as a genius. He doesn't act like he's smarter than her or that he thinks that he's smarter than her. And, basically refers to her as a goddess. But he still treats her so disrespectfully in that scene. So it's interesting.
Well, part of it is he thinks she's crazy because he can't understand how, and I kind of get this because he's like, I don't think you understand. I was in the home watching when she killed herself. There's no way this Verna person had anything to do with that. I watched her do it. Like, she committed suicide. And she's like, no, I'm telling you, this woman had a hand in it somehow. And then they find the picture of her, and she's like, see, she was there. And he's like, that doesn't make sense. I was at the house when she killed herself. So I think it's not that he doesn't believe her necessarily, but he's like, I saw with my own eyes that this was like,
Yeah, because he knows what he's seen, and it doesn't seem
right.
to
He's like,
mesh
I
with.
saw this with my own eyes. This woman wasn't there. This was just her. So whatever else is happening, so I can kind of get it where he's coming from, kinda. But then she's like, no, I don't think you understand. Like,
Well, what's more interesting though? So the guy knows that he's basically mentally degrading, like he knows he
right.
has like dementia.
Yeah, he knows he's
He's
on
hallucinating his dead
very
children
short.
talking to him. So I wonder if it's more
Short
like the
time.
thing, like if you ever dealt with somebody with Alzheimer's when you tell them something that they should know or they've experienced and they don't
Mhm.
remember it, that they get extremely defensive and somewhat violent. I wonder if it's more supposed to be
Maybe.
that that's what he's doing. Like
Possibly.
that he's trying to say, like he's worried that she was there and he mentally scripts it out. And so he's adamantly refusing to believe that she could have anything to do with it.
Mhm.
Or it could also be that he doesn't want to be responsible for his children's death. I mean, that's something to really think about. I mean, like, obviously, he's not father of the year, but he had agreed to pay them for his success. I mean, before they exist, well, two of them already existed, and Frederick and Tamerlane were already alive, but
Mhm.
he basically bargained his children's lives to have his success. And if Madeline's right, then he really did do that, and he is the reason his children are dying terrible deaths one by one, right? So I guess when you think of it that way, that might be another reason why he's adamantly refusing to believe that Verna exists and is doing this,
Yeah,
I
because
mean,
no
that
because
one
is
then
would
that
very
means
believe
he's
accurate.
killed his
that
children.
they were
You know,
responsible.
Yeah. That is
interesting.
entirely
Yeah.
probably it.
I mean, it's hard to keep that in sight because he's such, not a great dad figure.
Yeah.
But it does have more credence when you think about the fact, like the first story tells about Perry, where he's like, and if Perry had just paid attention, he would have known and not been in that building.
Right. And I think he's feeling guiltier and guiltier as it goes along. Because the first one, he was like, this is a fluke. And I think he kind of blames Frederick, let's be honest, a little bit, because he's like,
Yeah.
if you'd have just demolished these stupid buildings in the first place, it wouldn't have been there for Perry to go in and do this. And if you'd have done this, then it would have been, and if Perry had paid attention. So he had a lot of people to blame on that one.
Mhm.
And then the more that they're happening, the less he has to blame people.
Yeah.
And the more it's like
Because like
guilt is starting to weigh on him.
it's like one or two you could pass off as misfortune. By the time you hit number three, you're like, yeah, something is really going on.
Yeah.
By the time you get up to Victorine,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yep, now Tam's gone, leaving but Frederick as far as Roderick is thinking.
Yeah.
So, but again, man, I hate Netflix because their policies are really pissing me off. But this series is so fucking good. Like, I need to find a
It's,
way to own this series so that if Netflix goes away, I still have it.
I understand that. I understand
Uh,
that.
yeah. I'm,
It's really good. It's really well done. And just I love all the post story elements that are integrated into like all of it.
Mhm.
Like into the overarching story, into the little vignette stories that are every episode, just you get so much I mean, just like the points about like Arthur Pym and Richard Parker and like there isn't a
Yeah.
character that doesn't seem to be connected somehow.
Yeah, because if you're a big Poe fan, you'll catch so many more references, and I mean anybody who catches Easter eggs in a video game or something knows how excited you get about it. Oh, so I think the
It's
Mhm.
more
fun.
you're familiar with it, the more enjoyment you're gonna get out of it. Not that you have to be familiar with it, frankly, to enjoy the series. It's just that well done,
Yeah,
you know.
I agree
it is.
completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
You will
incredibly
enjoy the
well
story
cast.
regardless. I'm sorry, go
Yeah.
ahead, Betsy.
No, I was saying it's just incredibly well cast. Every time I watch another episode, I'm like, "God, this cast is good." Like watching Roderick in that shirt covered in blood walk into the room, talk to his dead children,
Mm.
go over, pour himself a drink, sit down, put that piece down on the table, and then start drinking. I'm like, oh, he's lost his shit. Like this,
Oh yeah.
but he's so calm about it all. He's not freaking out. He just walks in, does the thing, sits down, he's covered in blood. And I'm like, honestly, kind of forgot what had happened just before this. So I was like, what the hell happened to Roderick?
Yeah, I
What is
had a
going
little bit of
on?
that myself, Betsy.
Yeah, if you
Shit,
wait too long in between those two episodes, you're like, why is he covered in blood?
what the
I had
hell
to think
happened?
about it for a minute and
Yeah, and then when
place it. I
Madeline
was like,
comes in and
oh,
he's like, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, that's why he's covered in blood.
yeah.
I was
Well,
like, did
that
I?
and like to the point, like, and you don't even think at first you think, oh, because yeah, she stabbed herself, but then you realize it's not even just that. It's because he went in and like took that mesh off the fiance's heart and got
Ah,
even
yeah,
bloodier
when he
from it.
said that, I'm like, oh, shit.
And I love when he was like, well, I was gonna have an intern do it, but I thought I'd save some. Which the worst part is like I'm not entirely sure he was joking because like,
No, I think he really would have had an intern do it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think he was joking on that part. Oh, I think he's the type of person who would have had somebody else do it.
oh, and then Pim just standing outside that office door like that's Fortunatus.
Yeah,
That's Fortunatus.
yeah, I'm like, that, how is it that they're managing? Because usually, I think it would take an awful lot.
Him taking
To,
the
Mhm.
knife.
yeah.
And the cops are like, how is that?
How is that Fortunato property? I don't.
But and then you realize that they can't stop him, and that is what's terrifying.
Yeah.
Not even just Pim himself, but the clout of that company. And then you realize that that shit happens for real. You know,
Every day.
All the time.
and it's gonna get worse.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think, ouch. But
Yeah.
but back to your point, like about Frederick, like I had not really thought about how good an actor that guy was because he is such a good actor that you just kind of disregard Frederick. You know what I mean? Because you're
Because
like, because that
because his
dude totally is
character,
that dude. Like I mean, the actor's probably not really like that, but I mean, like he is
I
so
assume
in
not.
that role that it's
I mean,
like
yeah, because the character you don't think much of, because he's just this mealy
spineless, nepotism.
follower, just doing what daddy says, not really acting in any kind of forward, independent capacity. And until the crazy starts to come out in this episode.
Yep.
I mean, that's a great actor right there, when you totally
Yeah.
are just like, you know.
And when you've already dismissed them and then they do something and you're like, oh, oh no. And that's, I think, a mark of good writing and of good acting because it takes both to put that into play.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so major
And,
props to that dude.
Mm-hmm.
and to think he started in ET. Yeah,
Did he really?
that's the kid from ET.
Oh my god! Jesus!
Make that scene your deep. See, that's how much I disregarded this guy. I looked nothing into this character, into the actor's background at
Oh
all.
my God, it's
Like,
Elliot.
sir, I am sorry
Yes,
because
it's
you are
Elliot from
amazing.
ET.
Fuck
Did you say
me.
his name was Henry something? Sorry.
Henry Thomas.
Henry Thomas, you are an excellent actor, and I apologize for
Wow, yeah.
not paying attention all along.
Yes, yes, he was in ET. He's been in a lot of things, but yeah, all grown up, and because he was also in The Haunting of Hill House,
Oh, that's right.
which was
A
also
lot of
by
these
Netflix
characters,
a couple
Victorine
years
was
ago.
as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of these were, and he played the father in The Haunting of Hill House as well, and did an amazing job on that as
Jesus.
well.
Great
Yeah.
costuming too.
Same director too,
Yeah,
Flanagan.
Mike Flanagan.
So
Mhm.
Flanagan is knocking it out of the park because he did well, The Haunting of Hill House. He did what was the one that came out after that one?
uh,
'Cause it was
Bly
so
Manor,
good.
Hunting of Bly Manor.
yeah,
Yes,
Haunted of Bly
Bly
Manor.
Manor, which
Yeah.
broke my
It's
damn
basically the
heart.
turn of the screw. Well done though.
That
I
one
have not
broke.
watched that one. I'm gonna have to.
I literally like kind of wept at that one. It's scary, but it also has like this like just sorrow
Perfect.
in it that is just will rip you into shreds. And then this, he did something else too.
I'm not sure, but I do know Stephen King said The Haunting of Hill House was one of the best things he'd seen, as far as like horror stuff.
So I'm looking it up because I have to know now.
Mhm.
Midnight Mass,
Midnight Mass.
Okay,
Doctor
yeah,
Sleep, so much
Yeah.
stuff. The Midnight Club, Hush, the 2016 Hush.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, just, he's good stuff.
Yeah. He's incredible. Um, incidentally, he's married to the girl who played oh my God, what's her name? Cold
Kate Siegel? No, Shea Serrano.
Camille.
Excuse me. No, Kate Siegel. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I can safely say that like nepotism didn't fail in this regard.
I was gonna say
He was
he does
justified in
cast her
having
a
it.
lot, but she's also a really good actress, so I don't blame him for casting her a lot.
Yeah.
So it's fine. But he
Maybe
also had just
sometimes
has his
merit's described as nepotism because of relations, you know?
right.
Yeah.
And that's he has his people that he casts a lot because like several of the people that are in this were also in Bly Manor or they were in Haunting of Hill House, or Midnight Mass. So he
Yeah.
knows his people, and once he finds somebody that he really likes and likes to work with, he just keeps them.
No,
So,
Yeah, I
which
mean,
I
you see that
appreciate.
like with James Gunn. That's another person
Yeah,
that will keep
yeah.
casting the
I
same
mean, it
people
makes
that he
sense
likes.
because you know what you know how they work, and you know their capacity, so you kind of you know what you're gonna get. So.
absolutely.
Tim Burton's another one that does that, you know?
Oh yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's pretty common for actor or for directors to do that.
Yeah.
So, and if they deliver this level of performance all the time, because the
Mhm.
level of performances in this is insane, and it was the same with the previous ones that I've seen. I haven't watched Midnight Mass. I'm gonna have to watch that one.
I haven't
But
watched Midnight Mass either yet.
all of these have such a high quality of acting that it's like, oh, okay, yeah, oh, that makes sense. If we're thinking about it, we were just talking about Tales of Terror with Vincent Price and Peter Lorre and
Yeah.
Basil
Yeah.
Rathbone. They had done another movie basically with this exact same cast. Like
Yeah,
people
Roger
just
Corman's
do
another
that.
one. If people liked
Yeah,
you, you were in his stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah, it's very common. So this is not unusual for people to do. Um,
Romero did it too. Also, you would see
yeah,
pretty much
and
yeah.
I can't think of his name right now, but the one who does American Horror Story, he tends to cast the same people
Ryan,
every Ryan,
Ryan Murphy?
yes, Ryan Murphy.
Not Ryan, it's Ryan.
He casts the same people. Like Evan Peters was in basically every season.
Mhm.
So yeah, they get their people.
Mhm. I guess it's kind of like how you form friendships too, right?
I
Absolutely.
mean, because let's face it, all the Hollywood people and such doing this, you know, they're living an atypical life. So where are they gonna get out and meet people? Because they can't just it's a lot harder for them. So you're gonna build your social circles through work.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's why, like, half the time, like, Hollywood marriages I always laugh at, because I'm like, oh, you got married because you were working together, and then they divorced because somebody's having an affair with the next person that they worked with.
Yeah, or they
Funny,
divorce
not
because
funny, but you know.
Yeah.
they divorce because they don't like each other now that
Yeah, now that they're actually not working together. They're like, oh, you're actually a dick.
And I think a lot of times when you see the people that are falling in love in it, they're falling in love with the role that's being played. Well, I mean, I guess really we're kind of beating this to death. So, I mean, the same thing I'm going to say for every freaking episode of Follow the House of Usher. Watch this fucking series. It's really
Yeah.
good. You know, do a trial of Netflix for 7 days, binge watch it, cancel, have a good day. You know what I mean?
I just found out that you can buy it on DVD.
There you go. Buy the DVD. You
Fun.
will want
Yeah.
it.
And then you
Tales of
actually own
Terror,
it.
fun time.
Yeah.
Yes, highly recommend it. It's absolute fun when you just want something comfort and silly with a touch of Poe. It's perfect. Well,
Yeah.
sit yourself down with whatever your drink of choice is, and some snacks, and giggle away.
Yep.
And it's currently streaming free on Pluto, so you don't even have to pay for it. But I own it. Drop the like $6 on it. You could probably find
Yeah.
it fairly cheap on a streaming service or a used DVD. It's worth it. It's a nice comfort
Yeah,
movie.
absolutely.
And with that, I guess that's it. So thanks
Pretty
for
much.
tuning in again. We got 2 episodes left. We were hoping to have a little fun thing in between, but I don't think we're gonna have that happen. But that's totally cool because we can just keep finishing up our Poetravaganza.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, and we'll get this done into the new year and then start something new. Who knows what we're gonna cover next?
I
Could be
have some
anything.
ideas, but I'm trying to find it. It's
Okay.
I mentioned to Jenny there's a 1952 Finnish horror film called The White Reindeer. But,
Oh,
it's a vampire film, but however, it's maybe very difficult to find. It might be I have to buy a DVD.
hey, if
every
you're
DVD
watching this and you have a lead,
Yeah, if you have a lead on a 1952 Finnish movie called The White Reindeer, talk to one of us. You know,
reach out.
because it's
Yep.
not streaming in our region, and the region difficulties may be our problem. So if there's anybody who's an ace at finding odd and unusual things, hit us up.
We should probably hit John Paul up.
Yeah, that's actually what I was thinking in the car the other day.
Hey, John Paul, if you're watching this,
And you should be, you bastard.
Have your
Right.
marching orders. Go find this.
all right.
Cool.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks for
Good
showing
night.
up. Bye.
You have been listening to the Girls Ghost Schools podcast. You can follow us on Facebook or Instagram at Girls Go Schools Podcast, on Twitter at Girls Ghost Pod. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Girls Go Schools Podcast, and find our podcast on your favorite podcatcher.